How did you survive police confrontation? Stop by the Police was started by National Black Police Association in 1972. But because of the recent killings of young black males and females throughout the United States, we changed the name to How Do You Survive Police Confrontation? Not what do you do when you stop by the police. It's how do you actually survive police confrontation? Because being stopped by the police, being questioned by the police, there's chances that now young men are losing their lives, young women are losing their lives throughout the United States. It could happen to any one of us here. These simple questions: what is your name? Where do you live? Have you got any identification? These questions are part of what we call an officer's SOP. SOP is standard operating procedures, or nowadays they call them policies and procedures. And what is it? Established procedures to be followed in carrying out a given operation or a given situation. Law enforcement have pages and pages and pages of SOPs for every situation. What needs to be done. Like we spoke earlier, the continuum of force. That is a SOP. For this amount of force is necessary, all the way up to deadly force. So we're trained to follow the SOP. And why do we follow the SOP? Because the SOP saves our lives, because we're following the standard operating procedures of the facility. Now, the questions to ask are very simple. It can be easily answered by almost everyone. But when a police officer is involved, it can cause a lot of problems for both you and the officer, and for you. Most of the time, there is a reason for an officer to question you, even if it may not seem so at the time. I want to just ask, what do people think if an officer comes and questions you? What would be the reason for them to question you?
They probably have reasonable suspicion.
Okay.
That you probably are doing something or carrying in a way that they should stop being questioned.
Okay.
Usual suspects?
That could be too. Yes.
They may have gotten a call about a crime that has occurred.
Yes.
And they're investigating.
Yes. The officer may be investigating a complaint in the neighborhood, following up on a radio call concerning a crime committed in the area. For one reason or another, you may be an individual suspect, or you may have knowledge that will help the investigation, or the officer may think that you're experiencing some kind of trouble. Sometimes the manner in which the police question you may involve not respecting your rights, and that's key. Sometimes you may overreact to the questions and create even a more serious situation. That is key, is how you react to the questions. The key thing when you're approached by a police officer is to remain calm. Also, the key thing is know your rights. Every person, like you have the Bible in your house, you should have New York State penal law in your house. Right next to it. Matter of fact, you should read it more than the Bible, because you'll be tested on that every time you walk out of the house. Young men definitely get New York State penal law. Whether you download it, whether you keep it on your iPad or your BlackBerry, have it. You should know the law.
Ignorance is no excuse.
That's right. That's right. How do you react to questions? How do you react to questions? What type of answers you give to the officer's question may save you from more questions. See, because you might open up the door. And when you become nasty, he goes to the next step. Remember, he already has a plan that he's following. He already knows his procedure that he's following. See, now it's up to us as citizens to have our own plan and our own procedure when we're stopped by the police. If you're driving in your vehicle, just like Mayo said, police can ask you to pull over at any time. The best thing to do in that situation is to pull over and follow directions of the officer. You probably will ask for you to produce your driver's license and registration of the vehicle. This you must do when asked. Like Mayo said, turn your dome light on. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Doing this it will show the officer that nothing is wrong and will usually put the officer's mind state at ease. That's something key. Officers are people too. You don't know what that man just went through before he put his uniform on.
Stay on the mic.
Oh. You don't know what the man went through. His wife could have cussed him out. His kid could have got arrested. I heard we was in Dallas and Reverend T.D. Jakes said, he was one of our keynote speakers, and he said that police officers is the only people that arrest people for what goes on in their own home. So you never know the mind state of that officer when he and you always got to remember that. He could have, his wife could have said he's nothing. She could have laid him out, but when he put that uniform on, he got power now. When he get in that car, he got power. And maybe he's just waiting to exercise that power because he couldn't exercise that power at home with his wife. So you have to think of the mindset of the officer, always. Always ask the officer, "Officer, why are you stopping me?" Calm. They have to tell you why they're stopping. Sometimes the officer might think you're being smart about that, but always remain calm.
What if they don't answer you?
Then you just let it go.
You have to let it go?
Let it go. Because if you keep if you keep asking, we'll get into something down the road, a rule of thumb that you need to stay away from. See, when you keep asking,
Escalate.
you're going to escalate the officer. You don't want to escalate the officer. Your mission is, every time you get pulled over by police, is to get home safely. That's your mission. Your mission is the same as the officer's mission, is to get home safely. I'll get into that. I'll get into that. But your mission, you ask him, says, "Never mind, fine." But while you're sitting in the car, you're looking at his name badge, you're looking at his badge number, and you're making a mental note of everything that goes on. You have to remain calm so you can remember all these things. That's part of it. That's part of it. Like I said, simple traffic violation you might get, and if you think the ticket is incorrect, you could carry out that protest in traffic court. If you stop by the police on the street, most of the problems you may encounter with police can be avoided. Remember, they think they have a reason. At this time, you should stop, collect your thoughts, and remain calm. Remember, whether or not you're arrested is how calm and prepared you are. There are many factors the police may take in consideration when observing you. Every situation is different, and the officer may consider the following factors. If you're running from a crime, I don't understand why people see police and they run. I don't get it. If you did nothing wrong, don't move. Stay there. For some reason, our young kids decide they run all the time. A young man knocked on the door. His son, he wanted to talk to my wife. Got beat up by the police. He ran. He ran. They came. Somebody said that their cell phone was stolen. They saw, the police looked down and said, well, they went down that way. They saw a group of kids. They walked. They was just going to just say, do y'all know what's happening? Do y'all know what's going on? His son just started running. So what did that make him? The suspect. And the worst thing to do is make police run after you. Because when they catch you, they're going to cuff you, and when it comes to cuffs, it gets a little rough. So we told what the parents what to do, and hopefully I haven't seen them, so I hope everything is okay with that. If you're near an area where the crime has just been reported, you could be an area which is abandoned or occupied. A police may question you. If you're acting in a manner which appears suspicious, or if the police believe that you're in possession of stolen property. If the police come knocking at your door, if the police knock at your door, you do not have to let them in unless there is a signed warrant. Always ask to see the warrant. If it is proper on its face, you must step aside. And what meaning is that? It has your address on it. It has the name of the occupant that's in the house. And it's signed by a judge. There's two things you could do. They should have that. A lot of times, police should come with a uniformed officer. If they do not have a uniformed officer, I suggest don't open up the door and call your local police department. If they have a search warrant, make sure the address is correct again. What is listed on the warrant to be searched or taken. If the police do not have a warrant, you do not have to let them in unless they insist. Still, some people say still don't let them in. Sometimes they have orders to come in if you resist. Sometimes they do have those orders. But make sure that you scream as loud as you can and hope somebody hears you. That you do not want them in your home. You gotta have, it's just really, you just have to have some type of witnesses. Now some people are just putting cameras in their homes. They're just putting cameras in their homes to record everything.
You can use your cell phone.
That's right.
We have sometimes people use their phones and they record the entire incident, they videotape it. So
That's right.
You can see exactly what happened.
That's right. That's right. Cell phones is a beautiful thing now. All the time, ask for the police badge and ID. Anybody can make a badge. Anybody can. You can get online and order a badge. Ask for the purpose of entering your home. Let them in if they only insist. Like I said, if you object, make sure the police know that you do not consent to any search of your home. Remember badge numbers, officers' faces, the time of day, and write all information down as fast as you can. Yes.
How does that relate to the new ruling that if the police think that there's something happening inside of the building, whether it's a door, they have a right to come in?
If the police believe that you are destroying evidence, something along those lines, then they can come in. They're treating that almost like exigent circumstances, where an exigent circumstance would be an emergency. So they're treating it that way.
Right.
It really waters down your rights for search and seizure. But again, as you said, if they're coming in, they're going to come in.
Right. They're gonna come in regardless.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing you can do about that.
And even when you let them know that you object, how would you suggest somebody do that? Just
Well, if you're in a dwelling, the best thing you can do, trust me, if there's a whole bunch of police in front of your house, somebody's looking. Your neighbor's just watching. Because if they're coming, they're coming with a lot of officers. As loud as you can, scream that you object. Scream that this is unright. Scream that your rights have been violated. You have to, so it could be, so somebody can say that you said that. That is the best. That is the best way, because
Call somebody
well, you can call somebody too.
on the phone.
Right. You could definitely call somebody too. You could definitely call somebody up, tell them what's going on, and they can hear what's happening on the other side, and just to be a witness that they were on the phone.
But you want your voice to be loud, but
That's
at the
right.
same time you don't want to be confrontational.
Right, that's right.
If you're
That's right.
confrontational, now it's disorderly conduct, you cause public annoyance,
That's right.
the neighbors heard it, and now you get arrested for that.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, listen. These are the tricks. These are the tricks that they play.
Put in place.
Police may also search when there's an emergency. For example, someone screaming, help inside your home. Or when chasing you or someone else inside your home. Look at that. Did that? See them too? If they come to your door, and I'm speaking from personal experience, If they come to your door, they knock on your door, and they say, we got a warrant for you, do you open up the door?
No. Nope.
Do you open up your door?
No.
No, you don't. You call the police department. This happened to my wife, which is, like I said, she's a Mount Vernon detective. 2 probation officers came to our door. I don't answer the door. Luckily for them, I wasn't home. So my wife asked, who is it? First they said they were the police. So she said, really? She said, from where? They said, Westchester County. He said, okay. And she's talking through the door. She hasn't opened up the door yet. She said, what do you want? She said, we got a warrant. She said, really? She said, for who? They said, for you, man, for you. So she said, really? They said, yeah, you got to open up the door. She says, well, I'm letting you know right now I'm a Mount Vernon police officer. Who are you looking for? Then they said, oh, well, we're probation. This is through the door. So she said, they were looking for a nephew. But the game changed when they found out that she was in law enforcement. If you ever have plainclothes officers come to your house, call the police on them. Call the police on them. If you feel that they are not who they say they are, call the police on them and let them know through the door. I'm calling the local police department. I'm dialing 911 right now. I will not open up a door till a uniformed cop is at that door. That's your right. We found out that Westchester County probation has been doing this in Mount Vernon and other black neighborhoods throughout Westchester County. And they've been getting into people's homes saying that they're Westchester County police. Now, once they're in your home, you can't get them out. They're like roaches. You can't get them out. And you're thinking you're doing the right thing. See, because the average person say, I don't have a warrant. I've done nothing wrong. You can come on in. And now they're looking around. They're checking things. Well, you can look. I don't. And they're not even, first of all, they're not even police officers. Second of all, they never even showed you any paperwork. But because we feel that we're innocent, we did nothing wrong, we're going to let them in the house. But the first thing is, nobody really knows what's in their home anyway. Why would you let somebody in? Can anybody honestly say they know everything that's in their home? So if you have if you see a plainclothes cop, you don't let him in. Because you don't know what's in your home. You don't let them in. And they're violating your rights because they're supposed to identify their authority. These probation officers are probation officers. They're not Westchester County Police. And I'm in the process of giving a lot of people hell right now because they violated my wife's civil rights. They violated criminal procedure law. And, it's a writing campaign game, but it has to stop. And this is the part of the thing of having oversight in law enforcement. This is the part of the thing of holding our elected officials, holding our county legislators, especially the black ones. They haven't passed nothing. They haven't passed nothing. I'll talk about them. I have no problem talking about them because I've been screaming this before Ridley was shot. Before Ridley was shot, we wanted to address this issue in law enforcement because the only collateral damage is our own children. It's not happening in Scarsdale. It's not happening in Hartsdale. It's not happening in Briarcliff Manor. It's not happening in the real ritzy part of White Plains. It's not happening over there. It's only happening where we rest at. So are we the problem people? Or people just got some problems in our neighborhood that we need to address? And if we have these few black politicians We only have a few. I think we only got 5. 1, 2. There's about 5 of them. And we can't get out one legislation passed protecting our community? One? Even a watered down one? We can't even get that? Is it a problem with them or there's a problem with us? Yes.
Process. It's a process. In order to get anything changed, as far as when it comes to legislation, literally, you have to find out who your representatives are.
Right.
Then you have to, after you find out who the representatives are, then you have to find out what committees they're on. Then you have to find out what committee your bill falls into.
True.
Once you find what committee your bill goes into, then you have to go to everybody on that committee, Republican and Democrat on the Senate side. Then you have to go to everybody on the counterpart on the Assembly side, everybody on that committee. Then you have to then write letters of memo of support. You have to get a letter writing campaign. You have to then send it all up to Albany. You have to send it to...
Yeah, but that's state. I'm just talking, listen, I'm just talking, I'm not even talking state. I'm just talking Westchester County. Right. We got a black chairman of the board. And a black vice.
Yeah.
And a black vice. I'm not even getting to state legislation. I'm just talking local legislation. Just Westchester County. That's all I'm talking. Let's just start locally first.
If you go to the County Board of Legislators meeting, if you haven't been, I think it's good for everybody to go. Just stay for a little while. Nobody's there. There are very few people there. And if you bring 10 people,
You fill the place up.
One of the larger groups to be heard most of the time. So really, you don't have to go through all of those hoops with that body. And if you go and see how it works, you'll see exactly what the procedure is. And then when you're ready to make your presentation, we've done it a lot of times. You'll see that you'll feel comfortable when it's time to do that. And I think that what Damon says is 100% correct. Because if we don't participate also, if we get someone who's in office, it doesn't matter who that person is, we have to support people who are going to try to do things that we want them to do. If we don't support them, they're going to be fearful that if we propose this, the police union is going to be against it. If more people come out to support them, then they'll feel more comfortable probably going forward.
Politically, I think this is the best time to push legislation because police unions ain't looking too hot in the press right now.
No union, period.
Right, no union. So, for our own survival, I think this is the best time to push any type of legislation of accountability and transparency of law enforcement right now. Remember, if the police have stopped you, they believe that there's reason to do so. It's best to be calm and identify yourself. In many situations, you could talk your way into jail as well as talk your way out of jail by yelling, threatening an officer. The best way, the best you can do is to get yourself arrested, and nobody needs that. Just stay calm. Now, my friend in Dallas, President Gilstrap, I got this from him. He said, you never want to be a victim of POP. Anybody can guess what that is? Anybody can guess what that is? Pissing off the police officer. Don't want to be a victim of POP. Most of us are victims of POP because we piss off the cop. And remember, he has the authority to kill you. He has authority to kill you. Your main goal is the same as the officer. And what's the main goal?
Get home tonight.
Get home safe. Get home safe every time is to get home safe. When I'm pulled over, I'm in my little suit, I don't even carry my badge. I follow the whole thing through. And what I really don't like is when I do give them my ID at the end of everything, oh man, why you ain't tell me on your job?
Exactly.
And I say, well, why do I have to get respect? Why do I have to show that I'm part of this unjust system to get respect from you? You have to know your rights. Sometime when the police officer overstepped his authority and violated someone's rights, he would try to cover it up, his mistakes, by arresting you. Remember that. Typically, The common charges, and the mayor's laughing right now, the common charges are disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, obstruction of governmental operations. If you look at most police brutality cases, especially in Westchester County, always pay attention to the charges. It'll be all of them or one of those right there. Yes.
Damon, I know that there was a study done in New York City where they arrested like 55,000 people on marijuana charges, and of course most of them were African American males. Now, I understand that the issue was not the fact that they had marijuana, but the issue was the fact that it became sight. That the arrest takes place after they pull the marijuana out their pockets, after they do what the police tells them.
To stop and frisk.
Right.
So yeah.
If the arrest was the result of not having it in your pocket, but the fact that you pulled it out. Now, I see where you have here that if they ask to search you, you can deny it. So how do you deny it without continuing the relationship of feeling resistant and not wanting to work with the policeman? Because it sounds like it's a catch-22. If they say, no, I'm going to refuse your searching, or I'm going to refuse to pull out what's in my pocket, but doesn't that create the dissension that can lead to the police officer coming up with another reason?
It's how you carry it out. A lot of times it's how you carry it out. Most of the times people get ignorant, they get voiceful. Oh man, you're not gonna touch me. That's just calling problems. You just calm. I locked my car on the police one time. Can you get out the car, sir? Okay. Can I help you? Why'd you lock your car? Because it's mine. And you're not going in it. Your partner's not going in my car. Oh, okay. Here's my information. Have a nice day. Bye.
So do you think that the young men do you really think that the young men would get that same type of response? I mean,
a lot of times with our youth, they won't. But if they follow it through, and then the follow up is the complaint. Is follow. See, you follow through. Make sure that everything that you do is on the right. Yes.
A lot of times, like I had a case a couple of years back.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I went to follow through, it was he's on vacation.
Indeed. Every time you went to follow through,
Every time I went to the police station and followed through, it was always he's on vacation.
What did you go?
To get his statement on my case. I went with my mother and my wife.
And he's on vacation. Did you file a complaint?
Yeah.
okay, so
And then what happened after the complaint?
Filed a complaint, nothing happened.
Did you follow up on the complaint? See, this is the thing. This is the problem. When people file complaints, that's what the NAACP is for, to contact your local NAACP or contact your local organization or other organizations in your neighborhood to help that complaint go through. See, because yes. Sometimes it don't matter. I'm just telling you the truth. My man Mayo's here. I love him to death. Sometimes.
If you have a lawyer and you want to file a civil suit, then you file that civil suit, and then they're compelled to give a statement and get to depose that officer. But you have to pick your battles also, because if you pick your battles because the officer didn't treat you nicely, or he didn't really hurt you, or she didn't really hurt you, well, you're still living in that neighborhood.
Exactly.
So now you're going to have to see that person every day.
Yeah, exactly.
There are certain things that Damon or that I could do and say that probably, like you said, for you to lock your door, well, the officer's going to look at you and he may say, look, you're a young guy. Oh, well, look what I found. You get one of those deals.
Right.
You want to be what the last frame said. You want to be respectful.
That's right.
If they're going to frisk you when you're on the street, they're going to frisk you. They're going to say that you consented, or they're going to say, you know, they're going to say you moved around like this. It was a furtive motion. And when you ask them, they always say you made a furtive motion. When I ask them to show us how it happened, now they have to start thinking, because there was no furtive motion. And now they've got to figure out how they're going to show a jury what you did to justify why they, and it's some of
But don't you think
So
that
the
the
most
reason,
interesting testimony of the trial. Okay.
The key thing is, and I'm gonna let you speak, is you must, and we, everybody, must remember to take mental notes of everything. And literally, and follow through, and follow through on the complaint. And follow through. And contact, that's what these organizations are about, is actually support. Because a lot of times I've found, if the NAACP sends a letter to the police commissioner, I send a letter to the police commissioner. It starts moving because it's brought on the outside.
but the challenge is, you, again, live in that community, and that officer has your license plate, they run your plates, they have all the information on you, where you live, so, I'm saying this because my sister just went through this.
Right.
She was on her way to work early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, going through her neighborhood, dropping off a Mother's Day card at our aunt's house, and was tailed by an officer, a female officer. Officer pulls her over, frisks her, she's in her uniform to work at a hospital, and she tells the officer that she's on her way to the hospital. But the point is, she did not want to file a complaint because the officer lives in the neighborhood. They know exactly all the information that she has. She didn't feel any recourse.
Well, she should. The officer lived there, and see, and part of that is to go to your city council board. See, we, like I said, at the end of
that's the problem. They don't. The mindset is
Right.
that I'm not going to be heard. The mindset is that I don't have any recourse. The mindset is that nothing's going to happen anyway.
Right, and we have to change that mindset, because if more of us act, it will be changed. It just can't be Lena sending out statements. You know, me and Mayor on TV, they said that crazy lawyer, that crazy black guy with that black police association, and they try to dismiss what we're saying. It has to be more people. More people have to come out. More people is going to have to come out, because we're going to be, and I hate to say it, within another year, it's going to be another Thin Black Kid. It's going to be another one, because we collectively have not addressed the issue and held people accountable. If that's going on, she need to be wherever her city hall is. She need to be sitting down and talking to somebody. She need to be really talking to somebody or what's going on. Because whether or not we have civilian complaint, we need civilian complaint boards, because then they don't have to go directly to the police department. They can just go in, and sometimes, depending on how the city council set it up, is that her voice can be heard.
If it's done properly, she should be here.
Right.
Okay, and
She was in Pennsylvania, but I
Well,
think
that's what I'm saying. If she
yeah.
lived here, there's a good chance that happens to people who are right across the street.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, if we're here,
It could happen to me.
if you're here, you don't have to make a personal complaint against an officer. You can sit down at this meeting and we can talk about, well, this is what's happening, and then our executive committee can go and sit down with the police commissioner or the captain or whoever it may be, police chief. And then you can get it done without personalizing it, so no one's going to retaliate. Because you have to pick your battles.
Right.
You don't want to file a civil rights lawsuit for minor things, because then you will, and you have to be prepared to be retaliated against. But we are in, what anniversary is this? The 50th anniversary of the Freedom Riders. So we have to have enough courage also, where we're not afraid to go forward and do these things. Because but for what people did before us, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right. Now I just wanted to go over. Now this is what you should do if you feel that you're violating. You have to take notes of the following: time and day and location of the incident. If there are any witnesses, always keep officer's name or badge. And if like Yonkers, they don't have well, they're supposed to wear them, but sometimes police officers, they don't wear their name tags. Or sometimes you can't see the badge, you can't see their badge number because of the type of uniform. Always get the car number.
Yep.
The car number is always assigned to the officer for that shift. You know, I don't remember the officer, but I know the car number is 9783. And they'll look on that roll call and they'll find what officer is assigned to that car. So remember that.
Would that be the license plate number?
Yes.
Do you
Not necessarily.
Do you suggest that they actually ask the officer for a badge number, or should just try to see it?
You could ask. It's all. Like I said, it's always how you ask. You always ask. Not saying that he'll give it to you.
Or she.
But when you run into those roadblocks, remember get the car number when he pulls off. Sit there and let him pull off first. And grab that car number because he can't get away from the car number. The car number is assigned to him. He can't get away from that.
If you're not asking in the right way, and even if you ask at all, sometimes that may be the thing that pushes it over here. You arrested because they think you're going to complain.
That too.
So if you can,
it's a rubber.
you can get the badge without staring right at me and without letting them know you're getting that badge, and walk away, go home, and you think about what you want to do.
And let in the moment you just hear that the NAACP on its website has a complaint form against policemen. They are trying to gather data on a national level.
Good.
So they welcome you filling out that form. Not that they're going to respond on the national level, but it helps to bolster the national concern, if you will, with police behavior. And it is national. It's across the country.
Contact the local police department, or if you have a civilian complaint review board in your city or town, keep a log of who you talk to. Time, date, and names of people contacted about your complaint. Like I said, it's always good to contact local organizations. Organizations like these can always assist you. They will keep your complaint on file and monitor the outcome. I know when we get a complaint, we always send a letter to the police chief that we got a complaint, and let them know that we're watching, that we're monitoring the situation. If you can afford legal counsel, do so. It's always good to send correspondence from legal representation also. Sometimes it will help to speed the process up. Notify your elected officials. Send letters to your mayor, city council, legislators, senators, state attorney general. Keep all these correspondence. When you feel that your rights have been violated, it becomes a campaign, a writing campaign game. Because you have to let everybody know. What we were doing in Yonkers, with the Yonkers NAACP to bring the Department of Justice within Yonkers, we were helping the citizens fill out the civilian complaint against the Yonkers police officers. We were making copies of them, sending it to the police station, and sending the copies to the Department of Justice. Because the Department of Justice will not come in until they claim they see a pattern. Our argument has always been with the Department of Justice, it's just not a pattern in Yonkers, it's a pattern in Westchester. So it shouldn't just be one police department. They should look at the whole system of Westchester County law enforcement and how it's set up and how it's structured, and how there's really no true justice if you feel that your rights have been violated. But once again, at the end of the day, it comes back to us. It comes back to what we want in our community and what we need from our law enforcement. And one of the key things, is having law enforcement live in the community. Because see, if you live in the community, you can't go far if you violate somebody's rights. You gotta live there.
That's right.
You ain't going far. See, your family member is nice. See, a lot of other people, they wouldn't go for that. They'd be standing outside that lady's door, and she know it too. But if you allow people to get away with it and you don't follow up, then we're doing a disservice to our own community. We have to be the responsible citizens and address the issue. Like I said, not all cops are bad. Not all law enforcement is bad.
So I need to know, when you're talking about legislation about breaking the code of blue silence, then how do we go about that? A lot of people don't know the process when you need to push through legislation, but the only thing is, as far as what agenda are you looking to, target on, and then we, along with, legal redress, civic engagement, we can then start looking to really push that legislation. Again, I personally know the process because I do lobby, so if you can just kind of address what legislation we would really need to push to break the Code of Blue silence.
One of the things that I think we need is, the government wants to have surveillance everywhere. I think there should be surveillance in the police stations, in police cars. So for instance, if I'm arrested for DWI and an officer says I refuse, there should be video footage of me taking the test. Either I refuse or I don't, but it shouldn't be a question. I should be able to look at that tape and it either shows me blowing into the breathalyzer or I didn't. There should be mandatory use of cameras on police vehicles. That way, you're going to have many fewer incidents. And what happens is anytime my client tells me, ask for the camera, that tells me pretty much what I need to know. If the camera is going to show you committing the crime, you're not normally going to ask for that. I think that should be mandatory. They should have to always have that on. It should be made available to us. We shouldn't have to subpoena it. But what I would like to see is a mandatory reporting requirement for officers who observe their fellow officers engage in misconduct. And that legislation, if you approach your local, even your county board of legislators, but also your state assemblyman and your state senator, the state assemblywoman and state senator, then you really have an opportunity to suggest legislation. And if enough people go, they will propose that legislation. We have legislation all the time. After the lady died with the children in the car with the conic, they changed the laws. Did we really need a different law? I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, most people are going to say, not going to say, oh, well, now I'm not going to put the kids in the car and drive the wrong way drunk on the road because I don't want it to be a felony. You're not thinking at all at that point. So that's not going to be what deters anymore. So if we propose the legislation we think is important, we should make sure that we take advantage of the gifts that we have in this country. We really do have a representative government if we participate. Most people don't participate, period. So if we participate, our voice can be heard, and those are some of the things I think would be beneficial. And it wouldn't just help, it helps everyone. It helps the police, because it's very difficult to be a good officer and have a bad officer working with you or in your department, because you get tainted by that person. We go to the jail and we see clients and they come out with a broken nose, and the correction officers say, oh, you must have come from Yonkers.
Oh, wow.
They say that. And so, I mean, now is every person that works for Yonkers? Oh, no, absolutely not. There are a lot of outstanding officers in Yonkers, but that's the perception. So if you can weed out the handful that are the problem, that perception goes away. Even the perception of Yonkers as a city changes to people. Your property values go up, all the things, everybody wins.
I just want to add on the legislation piece. This is the part of the press statement that Lena sent out that is so key, is to hold our elected officials accountable for passing legislation. They have to pass the legislation, especially, we're sitting here as people of color, especially the black politicians. They haven't put a piece of legislation to protect us in police criminality. It's not police brutality, it's police criminality. Because what they are doing to our young men and women now is a crime. Is a crime. They need to be held accountable. When Christopher Ridley was shot, and they had the use of force report that came from Westchester County Public Safety. They did a use of force report to examine their training in the use of force. They couldn't implement it. The recommendations that they brought forth couldn't implement it because the county has no power over the 43 municipalities within the county as far as the police department. See, a lot of people don't know this, so this is why nothing has changed, because people don't know this. Westchester County Public Safety initially trains the police officers. Every police officer in Westchester County is trained by Westchester County, the initial academy. When they're disseminated to the 43 municipalities, then it's up to the municipality to continue to train the officer. It's not on the county. So when recommendations are made, it's only for Westchester County employees. So those law enforcement officers that are employed by Westchester County, we got the training. But they cannot force Greenberg, they can't force White Plains, they can't force Mount Vernon and Yonkers to train the officers in the proper way. And this is the problem. So what they would have to do, they would have to come here, get them to pass legislation They have to go to White Plains, get them to pass it, and so on and so on and so on. But the public doesn't understand this, and they don't know this. So they feel that, oh, Westchester County put out a report. They said they're updating training. You think all police officers is updating training. So when a New York City sergeant on his way to work gets beat up by 2 white Yonkers police officers, they saying that he's at fault. First of all, he's a sergeant of one of the largest police forces in the world, and he's already been trained in that, because New York City was being trained since the brother got shot in the subway. They've been trained since the 90s. So he knew what to say and what to do. But the Yonkers police officers, they attacked him first. But now they're trying to make him look like the bad guy, and they keep postponing. And they charge him with obstruction of justice. A sergeant, NYPD, on his way to work. And he's going to court now to fight this. So it's up to us to try to inform the people and let them know that their politicians have been AWOL in civil and human rights in Westchester County. And now you have the county exec that's dismantling the human rights, which, when we sat down with them, that could have been a vehicle for a civilian complaint review board to actually look at all the civilian complaints within the police departments. There's no real civilian complaint review board in no municipality in Westchester, not even here in Greenberg. Not even here in Greenberg. Wow. Mount Vernon has it. Mount Vernon has it in the city charter, but they don't have nobody appointed to it.
Even when you have a civilian complaint review board, I'm glad you mentioned that. You have to be very careful about that, because one of the things that you may want to do, we may want to do as an organization, is to foil the results of these civilian complaint review boards, because almost none of them ever find any fault with the officers. So quite often when you give them your statement, all you're doing is providing them a heads up of what they need to prepare for.
That's right.
And how they can think of ways to get around what you're saying. So again, think that they don't make a statement sometimes at all. If they do make a statement, it's after they've had time to consult with advisors. It is a reason that they're not just giving you their report. They make a report any other time. But what Mr. Jones says is 100% correct. Lots of officers are not familiar with their own rules and regulations. So, for instance, they don't know whether they can buy their own weapons, or do they have to buy the weapons through the department. They don't know what the use of force continuum is, and that's basically the first thing you do if you are confronted with someone, is you have a verbal command.
That's right.
Because that's the least intrusive command. And if that's not sufficient, then you can place light hands on a person.
That's right.
And if that's not enough, then you can use a stronger physical before you go to using a slapper or a baton or a taser,
That's right.
Things like that, pepper spray. And lethal force is only available when lethal force is being used.
That's
So, for instance, there was a gentleman who died in a car crash in the Bronx because the police shot him while he was driving away. Well, it's against police protocol to shoot at moving vehicles for a number of reasons, but you can shoot people you're not intending to shoot. And if you shoot that person, what happens to the car that's going 80 miles an hour now that the driver's not alive anymore? So there are a lot of things, and the budget is always important, because you will be told there's no money.
That's right.
And there's always money for stuff that you don't even know is out there, okay? And at the end of the day, there is money, but you have to talk about what's the cost of not having the training. So the cost of not having the training means that a young man's life is lost, a young lady's life is lost. Maybe the wrong person goes to prison, and we spend $40,000 or $50,000 a year for 25 years for that person to sit there. Exactly. So you can throw money away like that, or we can say, well, let's stop, let's take a step back, and let's invest in training our officers. There's a school of thought that says, let's take a step back and let's pay our officers more money. Because you know what? I don't want my officers having incentive to make arrests because it's the end of the shift and they need overtime.
That's right.
I don't want them to say that I work at 8 to 4, and since I need some more money and it's a quarter to 4, let me make an arrest now, go to the district attorney's office, talk to the secretaries, and hang out for a little while and come back tomorrow morning at double time or time and a half. Instead, it's better for us to pay a real salary that allows our law enforcement officers to live in the community, which is essential.
Which they don't.
We should have teachers who live in the community and those people care about the people that they're interacting with.
Right.
And if you do that, everybody wins. Your officer's not working a double shift. They're going to be a lot happier. They're going to have, their short tempers are not going to be there because they're well rested. Okay?
That's right.
And at that point, also, we're going to save in the long run. And the same for hiring people who are mental health professionals, social workers. You know,
That's
if
right.
you really stop and you look at it, Conchetta Russo, the lady who got killed at the Galleria Mall, she would very well still be alive if that guy had access to someone who could have talked to him and given him counseling.
That's right.
How much does it cost to do that?
That's right.
The county executive wants to cut that. Okay? And all the things that they're going to cut, they're not going to save you money anyway. At the end of the day, you might get $30 or $40. If I'm going to get $200 back at the end of the year, not even back, she's not going to get it back. Maybe I'm just not paying $200. For a
That's
whole
right.
year, less than $1 a day, I'll pay my $1 a day, even if I don't use the service. Because if, at the end of the day, again, she can't be brought back. It doesn't matter how much time he spends in prison. Now you have 2 lives, more than that. 2 families and everyone associated with both parties whose lives are shattered forever. Whereas we have invested a small amount of money to allow for someone to speak to him and to help him or to medicate him, or in a worst case scenario, if he needed to be institutionalized, to make that determination, you still have, in all likelihood, she would be here. So those are some of the things that we can talk about the budgets and present that to the legislators. Then they start to see what you're talking about, that you're serious, you've done your homework, and it makes sense.
Right. Well, I think the NAACP is known, is strong enough within Westchester County with the chapters to really call the assemblymen and the senators to task. The only legislation that was put out for questionable police shootings was, or suggested, I believe it was legislation by Senator Eric Adams, who was the co-founder of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement and retired NYPD captain, to have a statewide special prosecutor independent of municipalities to investigate questionable police shootings, and he was also trying to implement through legislation to get police officers to have what they call gun cams, where there's actually a camera on the tip of the weapon.
Yes.
And is activated when the gun is drawn. So if there is a questionable police shooting, you could actually see what the shooter is the target in what he's doing. But all that fell back because the people are not well informed. You know, people are not well informed. Yes.
What do you think about police sensitivity training?
Well, I think police sensitivity training is good, but I got one better than that. We need to start hiring police from our community. See, Westchester County is the only one that really don't hire police that come from their community. I don't understand why not. Because if you hire the people that grew up in your community, they know the community and the community knows them. We used to have a lot of police from the community, white and black, here in Greenberg. Matter of fact, 2 white brothers was my coach, the Turnbuls, and they were Greenberg police officers, and they lived right here, and they knew everybody.
That's right.
Nobody lives in the community anymore.
See, I asked that question because my feeling is that, you know, like all of these cases, especially against minorities,
Right.
why do you have to train someone to treat someone like a human being? You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't look at them like a human being, no amount of training is going to do anything. You know, if you always look at, let's just say, minorities as the enemy,
Right.
I don't care. They can train you from here to 3,000.
Well,
it's not going to do anything.
Well, it's just not. It's the culture. It's not. It's just it's the culture of policing. My wife is a detective in Mount Vernon. It's the culture of the police. She came home one day, and sometimes I have to debrief her sometimes. She get out there, and I gotta, you know, talk to her, let her know come back to earth. But she said she was talking about a class, and you know, it's us against them. I said, well, who's them? What is the description of them? If the police mentality and the police culture is us against them, who is them? Explain to me who is them. And I ask every law enforcement officer, explain to me that culture. See, and that's the problem. The problem is the culture. So it doesn't matter if you're black or if you're white, you get into that culture. And sometimes black officers think they're police officers before they're black men, instead of, I'm a black man that happens to be a police officer. And understand what I'm saying? So to combat that and say, we want police from our community. We want the cops that grew up with Ray and Bobo. They already know their families and ours because they'll deal with the situation different. If I don't live in this community, I really don't care about the community. I don't even pay taxes in the community. I barely support a business in here. I'm just coming here doing my 8 hours, make a couple of arrests, and go back upstate. And that's what we have here. And that's what we have here now.
And sometimes there's a financial incentive. Again, if I don't live here, and I don't know you, I don't know anybody here, I'm only here because I have to be to earn a check. I'm only seeing the worst that Greenberg or any town has to offer, because
That's right.
What we have to remember too is that the police are dealing with criminal incidents or investigations, and then the other things they deal with, someone died, so you get a call, police show up. That's not a happy moment. Even your pet dies, the police show up. So the police are there for accidents, tragedies, basically not good things. And there's not much positive interaction between the police and the community. But when you look even right now, there's a proposal to close some of the prisons in the northern part of the state. Mm-hmm. And the lobby from the union is saying basically, oh, well, we need jobs. We don't need 2 jobs just simply because we're going to incarcerate people. If that means that that's what I need in order to sustain myself, it's a sad statement at that point. I think
just like you say that the police are educated, I feel that it's a duty for men like yourselves to educate men like us.
That's what we're here for.
Because it's come to a point where I can see somebody that's the same age as me, but we just totally different. We talk totally different. We can live in the same apartment building, live on the same block, play in the same court, but then for some reason, when I go to church, you're still on the court. When I go to school, you're still on the court.
Right.
When I'm in after school, you're on the corner. And I just feel like if the police are educated, then society should take time out to educate those who are coming up. Because just like you said, the media plays a very important role. They see the media, they see rappers with money, but they don't see lawyers with money. They don't see doctors with money. They don't see the Ben Carsons. They don't see the creators, the inventors. All they see is rappers and dollar signs. They don't realize that even rappers, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, they are creators. They're not just rappers. They don't just rap a line and get money. They have to do so much more, and they don't see the hard work. They just see the profit after the hard work, and I think that's a big issue in communities.
So absolutely, because it's not fair for us to blame the police if we play a role in it. And to the degree, if I'm a problem in the community, and I'm a young person, and you're around my same age and all that, well, then I make it hard for you. Because at the end of the day, there are problems out there. So now they don't know who the problem is, and you're not dressed like this. So if you're not dressed in the suit and tie, and then they don't know, and they're going to look at you, and they're going to possibly judge you for things that you had nothing to do with.
That's
so
right.
You're right.
That's
If we do what we're supposed to do, we do diminish the need for policing in the community. And one of the things that happens is when you look at public housing in particular, we quite often ask for police to come in.
That's
and
right.
when we ask for police to come in, we've asked for police to come in. So now when they're there, we can't get upset when my son gets arrested for having marijuana, because the police aren't there to arrest everyone other than me and my family. They're going to be there to, period. Now, you're going to end up with people who can't go back to their homes. You get bought out of public housing if you live in public housing. All right, and maybe you shouldn't, but that's what's going to happen. There are a host of things. So we need to be aware of what the consequences are of our actions. I think you hit it right on the head, and it comes down to accountability across the board. But the accountability that they discuss tends to be more from the community and not from law enforcement.
Right.
And law enforcement, when things go wrong, law enforcement, they say how difficult it is to work in law enforcement, and you have to understand. So no, we really know. What has to happen is that we need well-trained people. We need people who are well-educated, who understand what their protocols are, and who don't have an us versus them mentality. Because if that's the case, then they're going to be a small occupying force wherever they happen to be.
I'm gonna just take a segue and an opportunity here. These 4 young men hail from Berkeley.